Hey guys, in today's video we are going to be looking into an encounter that took place, and it was by a lady who was working within London. Now, I've heard about portals before and the theories of these kind of doorways in different cities around the world where you can go into them, and some of the theories are that people have been seeing weird activity and behavior around these areas, that the people walking around these particular streets and towns are almost soulless or have dark eyes and don't seem to respond when you talk to them. Today I'm going to be covering an encounter. One of my subscribers is a lady who works within Kensington. Now, there are a few roads in London where some of these portals are supposed to be, and this theory is that there is one in Kensington, one in Notting Hill, and a couple more scattered about the area. Now, my subscriber's job is something that basically means she has to be in the area, and she travels to and from each one of the kind of boroughs in London. She has a business where she works as some kind of freelancer, and she does a lot of walking about because she has to go to different buildings within areas. Now, while she's walking around, she said you get the usual kind of thing. People look down at their phones, people have magazines, which isn't so common nowadays, it's more of the 90s kind of thing, but they're just not paying attention to each other. And I always thought this was kind of unique, and it would give the perfect cover to soulless entities or beings who are traveling from other dimensions and points of time in history. She's noticed some very weird anomalies which I wanted to share with you guys today. Just a heads up, if you are new to my channel, consider clicking the subscribe button down below for more videos like this. I'm going to be honest here, I've never had an encounter like this in my life, but I've investigated hers and I'm happy to share it. The first time she started to think something was weird was actually a time when she knew nothing about portals, dimensions, humanoids or time travel. She'd never heard of any of this, and really, other than some of the cool films like Back to the Future, she'd never even contemplated what time travel would be like and who would do it. She started doing a lot of these different journeys to and from areas in Kensington and other areas in London, and all of these journeys would be on foot. She'd have a posh trench coat on, she would have her heels on, you know, a proper kind of business lady, very formal and very smart. She took dignity in what she did. There were a couple of details that I must remember to add in for this encounter, and I keep forgetting them over and over again. But this lady was working a few years ago, and she was on one specific journey to try and go and get some information from a client that she was working for. During this kind of travel, she would walk through a 20-minute journey along the edge of Kensington, through the centre and past all the posh lovely houses. And she said that most of Kensington, depending on what time of day, is very quiet and desolate. You get all the posh cars driving by, the Range Rovers and the expensive SUVs and 4x4s, but no one really pays attention to each other and no one really does anything. She was making this journey, and she started to look at the types of people that were walking past her, because obviously it's not like when you're on a busy subway or an underground train, you just won't look at people because there's thousands, right? But because there was only a few, it meant that she could focus a lot more of her time on the people walking by. She never walked with a phone or her head in a newspaper, as she thought that was a silly thing to do and was not very safe or smart. She was noticing while taking this trip that the people she was walking past didn't seem normal or like people. She said that they were moving in their bodies as if they didn't know how to walk properly. And the best way she could describe it is, you know, when people put those funny sumo suits on to mimic sumo wrestlers. They're like massive, and you're moving, but it's like doesn't fit you. It's not your body, obviously. It's a suit. She said it was like they had a suit on like that, where their original body is a lot smaller, and they were moving around, but they couldn't actually properly use the body, as if they didn't know what they were doing. She was walking past these people and she noticed that almost every single one of them had sunglasses on, And when they were wearing their sunglasses, it was the perfect opportunity for her to, not be able to see their eyes. So she noticed that these people were all wearing these sunglasses, or as some of my viewers will call them, shades. One thing she started to pick up on was the first few people that walked past her were all wearing the same brand of sunglass. They were wearing a Oakley sunglass, and it was a weird shape that she had never ever seen before. And one of the jobs that she had done was actually selling products which involved sunglasses. So she explained that she had a bit of knowledge. She's climbing over a tree right now. And she was a bit aware of different types of models. And she looked up the exact model of the Oakley sunglasses, and she couldn't find it. It didn't seem to exist. And the next day she did the same thing. She went down and she took the journey again to see different clients, and she realized that there was the same anomaly yet again, that all these people were wearing the same brand of Oakley sunglasses, and they were so tinted that you could not see the eyes. Now this is in the area that's famously known for having the dimension portal in Kensington. That's the first time she started to realize something was a bit weird. She thought they're all in a group together, they're all friends, they're all business partners, and they've all been given the same sunglasses or something, but she didn't know what brand this was. It was like they were just made up, or fakes or something, made in China or something. That, along with the fact they couldn't move normally, is what caught her attention. And she started to play a game where she actually would do people watching. And I recommend people do this because it's quite fun, it's quite exciting. If you're in public, analyze where you are, be present in the moment. She soon realized that something was totally wrong. That these people walking around weren't really knowing where they were. They were acting as if they were lost. And she said that they would look around with these sunglasses on at the buildings, and they would all do it as if they had just been immersed in a new experience. And they were looking at the cars as they drove by, kind of like if you took a guy from out in the bush on an island who's never seen civilization or technology, and you place them in central London or in a high-end place like Kensington. He would be scared, intimidated, uncomfortable, not know what to do, not know what's happening, and that, of course, would be a natural response to someone who was new to the surroundings. These journeys she was doing, these commutes, she started to realize they were getting more and more obvious that something was seriously wrong. And all these people were acting extremely strange. Now, don't get me wrong, she specifically stated it wasn't every single person that was traveling past her that was acting like this or wearing these shades. In fact, it was actually around about 20 to 30%. So, of course, there were a lot of normal people that were actually walking in a rush with their bags, or people who were coming out of their houses. Although most people in that area don't walk around, they tend to drive around or be driven round. So, she was looking into paying more attention to these people, and she decided that on one random day she would follow these people. And this was a decision she made because she was extremely confused about what was actually going down and who these people were. Was it a group of people? Where did they go to, and what were they actually doing? The first thing she started doing, which was only a couple of years ago, was not going to her work or going to meet the clients. She would leave early and she would start watching these people with the Oakley sunglasses and see where they went. Yet again, these people would behave in the exact same way, walking like their limbs are too long or they're in a suit. Imagine putting your son or daughter in like a huge bodybuilder's suit, like a funny costume. She said it was like that. And then again, they were looking at things and never did they look at her, apparently. It was almost like she was invisible. And they kept saying this she kept saying this to me as if it was a really important part of the story, of the encounter, that she didn't seem to understand these three behaviors that they were giving off. It was not normal. It was not normal for humans or people of today's day and age. So eventually she started following these people. and she noticed that they were all going into one specific building in Kensington. Now, I'm not going to say what that building is, but she did tell me. I'm not going to say what road it was on either, but she did tell me. And she said that this particular building was not a private building. It was not a private house. It was something that was linked to an organization. I'll leave it at that. And they would go in and they would come out. The same people, they all had the Oakley sunglasses on. They weren't all wearing the same clothes, but the majority of them looked very similar. They had standard clothing with jeans, a hoodie, or some kind of smart polo top, like, say, a tech guy would wear from, I don't know, New York or something, or a banker on his day off or his easy day. And as she was watching from this house, she got a very bad, dark feeling that something was going to happen to her. And I thought, well, that's rational, because she was getting involved with something she didn't understand. She immediately stopped following these people, stopped paying attention to them, and stopped absolutely everything to do with what was going on. And this was a submission that I got actually 2 years ago now, or I think it was, no, sorry, not 2 years, 2 months ago. And she was talking about how this happened. Well, the other day I saw that this is re-trending, and a lot of people are experiencing similar things in London. So it's not something that was a one-off experience, is they are seeing these people that don't look like they fit in, or they look like they are experiencing the area for the first time ever, and they have come from another dimension, or they are simply not human, whichever one people are trying to theorize. So what do you guys think about this? Because I'd be interested to hear your opinions. My advice is, I would say, do not talk to types of people that you think are dangerous or up to something that could be unknown or criminal or extraterrestrial or interdimensional, because it could tie you into whatever they're doing. And she went a bit far and risked a lot by doing what she was doing, and I think overall she regrets it, because she's had some rather weird things happen to her, from stalking, phone calls from unknown numbers, threats, and all different types of behavior because of what she did. And she didn't want to talk out about this. She didn't want to make a TikTok. She didn't want to film the people. She didn't want to film the building in Kensington, because obviously she was scared. So she asked me to share this instead for her. And my genuine opinions are that it didn't sound like she was lying, in my opinion. Sounded like it was all very believable and fathomable. However, the problem here is, what the hell are they doing? Who are they and where are they from? Those are the questions we have. The next encounter I'm going to be talking about today is something I've been investigating from a subscriber who is called Anthony. Now, Anthony is from Washington, and he was visiting London in 2011. When he was visiting London, he was exploring different areas in it. He went to Big Ben, he went to the museums, all the famous places that you would expect to go in, you know, in London if you're a tourist. And Anthony had never been to London before. It was his first time going. He went with his family and his older brother is his family, and they decided to make a couple of weeks worth of a holiday there. And he was enjoying his time there. There was nothing out of the ordinary, and he started to go out in the evenings to some of the clubs there in London. He liked them. He thought they were quite different and not like the ones in Washington or the town where his family used to live. So he made the decision to go out on a second night with his older brother. And they were staying at a hotel, which I believe was not the Hilton. There was another one that's near it. Not as expensive, but still very high, prestigious hotel. And where he was staying in the hotel, he could walk to the nightclubs. There was a couple just around the street. It's about a 20-minute walk. And he decided he could either take a taxi or he could simply just walk. So they figured they'd take a taxi out and then they would walk back. It was around about 2 in the morning, and he was walking back with his older brother. And he said on the first night that he walked back, the place was totally bare. It was pretty much empty. The streets were full of a couple of girls who were coming home from the nightclub, or, you know, guys who were picking them up, or their fathers and things, and their friends. nothing out of the ordinary. He said there was no weird behavior, no unusual things happening, and in 2011 especially, it was generally considered a safe city, London. However, things changed on that second night, which was the walk home. The walk home to his hotel with his big brother. Now, both of them were intoxicated, and they had been drinking heavily in the club. They were extremely lethargic, they were extremely tired, which is totally normal. If you've been in a club, you know that the speakers are blaring, people are just going crazy, shouting, yelling. You can't really hear each other talk or have a conversation. By the time you come out of it, you feel like your soul's been drained from your body, because, I mean, probably has. You're drinking all these spirits and alcohols, and then you're getting your ears burst by piercing electronic music. I guess it's an acquired taste, you could say. Not my kind of thing. But a lot of the youngsters like to indulge in this, and they enjoy the vibe, as they call it. He was coming home with his big brother. He had ringing in his ears, tinnitus. He was totally out of it with drinking way too many shots and too many beers. And he said that he was not really aware of what was going on. But he remembers walking around with his brother to the second street. So he was on the way back to the hotel, and his parents were probably going to be asleep, but they gave him a key in order to get in. And when he got up to the hotel room, he noticed that his brother wasn't even there. His brother hadn't followed him. His brother hadn't even done the walk home. So he goes all the way back down to the bottom of the hotel. He keeps his key, and he goes out into the street again and starts to trace back and track back his route. It's not successful at all. In fact, he can't find any trace of his older brother or anyone that would have, you know, been hanging out with his older brother, because he said at one point in the club he was hanging out with a girl, and they were making out in the corner. They were sat at one of these booth things near the bar, and he went off with the girl for a while, and Anthony just let him go, so he didn't interrupt what they had going on. But Anthony strictly remembers, even with him being tipsy, that there was an agreement that his older brother would not go to this girl's place or spend the night with her, that he would come back to the hotel. So that's exactly what they agreed on. And Anthony remembers his older brother leaving the nightclub with him and walking to at least the second street. So where the hell had he gone? Well, he went back all the way to the nightclub. He was searching the whole street, and he started to panic. Even with all the alcohol in his system, he was still panicking, and he was worried as to what was going on. He was searching everywhere. He's asking people. He started pulling cars over, saying, "Have you seen this guy? You know, I need your help. My brother's lost. I can't find him. He's gone missing." And he said that the people who would pull over would just ignore him and speed away, because they'd just see that he couldn't even form a sentence. He was slurring, panicking, holding their car and like leaning on it, off balance. It was a nightmare. And he said if he wasn't in that tipsy state, he would have definitely been panicking pretty bad at that point. It's around 3 in the morning now. The nightclub is about to shut at 3:30. And he's gone back to the nightclub. Anthony has asked the doorman, the security staff, and the staff inside of the nightclub if they have seen his older brother. He shows them photos that he has on his phone, and all of them at the door say, "Yes, he left with you." And Anthony says, "No, he didn't. I went back to the hotel room, and I looked back and he wasn't there. I wasn't paying attention." And they said, "Well, listen, mate, sorry, we can't help you. Our job isn't to locate missing people. He's not in here. He's not causing a disruption in here, so we can't do anything further to help you. We recommend you call, you know, law enforcement." So that's what Anthony does. He's drunk. He's totally out of it. He calls 999 to see if they can help him find his older brother. And as usual, they don't declare it a very important call, and they ask him to do specific steps before they send any officers or units out. Anthony, being totally out of it, could not even remain conscious or keep his eyes open. He ends up falling asleep, and he wakes up. Now, he said that he woke up in a room that he has never seen in his entire life. And this room had him sat on a chair, hunched over, and he could feel a sensation like he was strapped to the chair. Something was holding him from falling frontwards onto his head or face on the floor. And it was his arms tied behind his back. He looked next to himself, and his brother was there, in the exact same position. Anthony obviously had no idea where the hell he was, what was going on, and he started to panic. He said it didn't help that in this moment he had the worst hangover in his entire life. And he was in some kind of a warehouse. You know those big industrial estates where they do car mechanics work, construction, material sourcing, textiles, furniture. He was in a site like that, and where they were in London there was nothing like that anywhere. So he was very confused where he was. There was no one with them, but that was his immediate fear, is someone's going to do something to us or our bodies, and well, it's over, that's the end of our life, he thought. And things started to change when he soon realized that every hour that ticked by, no one was coming. They were in some kind of unit or warehouse room, and there was no noise, no sound, no vehicles. It was like they were in the middle of nowhere. Well, it turned out they were, because Anthony managed to shimmy, like hop his chair around 50 meters. He said he was exhausted, and he got to the edge of where there was a door. And this door was unlocked, it wasn't open. And when he opened the door, by turning his chair around and using his hands by hopping everywhere, he opened it and it was a field outside. The guy had ended up 150 miles away from London. He was up north, near Scotland. And he had to try and hop his way onto the nearest road on this chair, and multiple times he fell over, and he did all this to save his brother's and himself's life. And a man ended up being the person to drive past him first, and this man thought it was some kind of a prank or joke, and at first actually started laughing. And the man stopped eventually and realized that this was serious and that he had to take things seriously, so he did. They called the police. Things escalated. His older brother was fine. They found no wrongdoing or harm onto him. He was just totally out of it. He had no idea where he was or what he was doing. And after that, Anthony went straight back to his parents, and they worked together with the police to try and figure out what was going on. They looked over the CCTV. Anthony and his brother were walking back from the nightclub the first time he went to the hotel, and his brother collapsed on the pavement, or the sidewalk as my American viewers call it. Anthony didn't notice, he was too drunk, kept walking, and the footage shows a van pull up and take Anthony's brother, literally picking his body up. Two men get out of a van and they put him in the back. And guess what? The London police find the exact same camera footage from the next road where Anthony fell asleep and lost consciousness, and they see a different van, not the same one, as if this is an organized group, doing it to him when he had fallen asleep at the edge of the road. That is creepy as hell, and he was very close to having something happen to him. He doesn't know what they were going to do, but some people gave him advice within the units at the law enforcement in the UK, and they said that this is what they do with humans and also stolen cars, is they leave them in remote locations to scout out if anyone will come for them or find them or locate them, or if there's any tracking devices on the car or even the human. And then they will wait a few days and then go back in and do whatever they want to do. Obviously with the cars, they will sell the parts and sell the car abroad or strip it down for thousands of pounds or dollars. And with the humans, well, I'll leave that up to you guys to think about, because I don't really want to. Next encounter I'm going to be covering today is from a lady who was at a nightclub in London once again. But there is backstory to this encounter, and this encounter was a very weird, paranormal, afterlife style encounter. And this lady was studying in London. She was a student at the Metropolitan University, and she was studying science or something, a bachelor's degree in science. And she had a few friends in London at the time. She was in her early 20s, and she was studying science to go on and have a career in it. That was her goal. She had to go on to a better university, as the one she was at, she said, wasn't very good, and she planned on going higher up in education to get the grades that she was required to get. Now, while she was doing this, she was enjoying her life on the side. You know, the life of a student can be very, very tough. They have to work part-time to afford their cost of living, unless they get an extra loan out, which means they have crazy amounts of debt when they're older. And they have all their studying to do, which, if it's for a degree, whether it's a bachelor's or a master's, is very, very stressful and time-consuming. So she was very, very kind of caught up in life. She was always doing something. She would either be meeting up with friends, she would be studying, grocery shopping, cleaning her apartment. She lived in a student shared accommodation, and they all got on pretty well, which was good. So she was actually getting these very weird kind of schizophrenic episodes while sleeping, and she had never had anything like this before. She had never heard voices or encountered any kind of paranormal activity in her 21 or 2 years of life on this planet or this realm. And she was starting to hear voices in the night, and she was actually so paranoid that she booked an appointment with her family doctor. And the family doctor, helpful as always, decided to prescribe her a bunch of pills, which only ended up making her have some other side effects and feel rather sick and unhealthy. And it didn't even help the voices. It actually seemed that they were getting louder and clearer. So I asked this lady, I said, what were the voices? And she said she would continually hear the same things over and over again. And these phrases were, "Can you hear me? Please help me. Can you hear me? Please help me." I mean, you can't really think of anything more terrifying to be hearing in your head during schizophrenic episodes than that, can you? So she was hearing these voices in her head, and she was starting to freak out. The medication she was taking wasn't working. She gained a lot of water weight and had a lot of health problems due to what she was taking, and her studying for her degree and her social life went down the drain. She made the decision to deal with the voices in the end, and she stopped doing the pills, and she spoke to her family doctor and said, "I don't want to do this anymore. It's giving me more problems and it's not helping." So the family GP said, "Okay, good luck. We can't do anything else. We could get you a consultation with a specialist, but that will take half a year." And my subscriber said, "I can't deal with that. I'm sorry. I'll put up with it. I'll try and seek help. I'll talk to friends, family, therapists." So she did. She went on about her life, and she kept hearing these voices and these different types of sounds. Again, "Please help me. Can you hear me?" These were the types of things that she was hearing. And while she was doing the jobs around the house from day to day, she would never really hear any of these voices. It was only at night. It was at night time, so remember that. It was nighttime these voices would enter her mind, and her theory was that she could just hear them during night, but she couldn't hear them during the day because she was so busy. There's chaos, routine, rushing, time restraints, and stress were drowning out the voices, because she said to me it was very clear, very, very whispered, but it was, "Can you help me? Please help me. Can you hear me?" Like that kind of thing, as if someone was whistling inside of your skull, she said. And she was doing the best she could to sleep, but she was very sleep deprived. And she started opening up to her friend Ashley about this, and Ashley advised, relax. She said it's stress, calm down, take some time off studying, take some time off your job. I will help you with your costs and your food and your rent. Please just calm down. So she agreed with Ashley, and she took her advice. After a few weeks of relaxing, she started going out more. She started going to coffee shops. She started going to restaurants. She started going on walks at the park, Richmond Park, one other one in London, she said. I've forgotten which one it was. Highbury Park or Hisbury, I think. And she was doing these walks with her friend Ashley and their other friends. Some of them went to the uni, the Metropolitan London uni, but most of them didn't. They were just studying elsewhere or just working in London, office jobs. And on one of their night outs, they went to a club. And she said that this was the first night where she was actively not sleeping or laying in bed, where she heard the voices while stood up actually doing something during her life. And this time it was different. She didn't hear, "Please help me." She didn't hear, "Can you help me? Can you hear me?" She didn't get any of those usual sentences or questions which this spirit or voices in her head had been hearing. Instead, she got the biggest urge to go up to a man in the corner of the club and say, "I like forests." And when I was listening to her say this, I struggled not to laugh, I'm going to be honest, because it sounded so bizarre. But she said in that moment she didn't find it funny. She said she was again at breaking point, and hearing this made her almost freak out and break down in the club. And she had such a strong urge to do it that she felt in her mind that if she told this random guy that she liked forests and then left, that the voices would stop. Remember, schizophrenia and people who have handled this kind of thing before will do crazy things to get relief. Same with OCD. And she went up to him. Ashley was watching like, where's she going? Gosh, she's asking this guy out. She never does this kind of thing. She's not that forward. He's not her type. What's going on? She goes up to this guy and she says, "Sorry, I'm sorry." And she introduces herself. And she said, "I had to tell you this because it was on my mind," and at the time she pretended her friends dared her to say it. She said, "My friend Ashley's dared me to say this. I like forests." She said the word, and the guy stood there staring at her in total disbelief. You know those soldiers that come back from the front lines and they've got shell shock? Their eyes, they look at things like their pupils are bulging, like it's like they're on adrenaline 24/7 and their veins are pouring with adrenaline. She said that's what he did. He went from being like holding his drink, moving to the music with his mates, to terrified. And she thought in that moment she was now seeing things, not just hearing things. She thought she was seeing things. She was panicking. The guy stops the eyeball bulging. He stops pulling the scared face. And the next thing he does, a split second later, is start break down crying. And Ashley and her friends come over. And at this point, my subscriber also starts breaking down crying. She has no idea what's going on. She thinks she's losing her mind. This random guy's now... she's seeing things. He's not actually doing this. She's just imagining it in her mind, and she is panicking. Turns out the guy was breaking down crying. No, he didn't have schizophrenia as well, or any tendencies like it. This is incredible. His father had died 2 weeks before that. And they made an agreement. They were both into the afterlife and the paranormal. They used to go ghost hunting, and they used to go out looking for poltergeist activity in different houses and locations. And the father fell very ill with a terminal disease. And when he was on his deathbed, he said to his son, "If it's real, I'll confirm it." And the son said, "How will you confirm it?" And he said, "I'll come up with a saying, just some words, something." And he said, "Yes, say that you like forests, just say what you love," because he loved forests. And they agreed on the most nonsensical, funny thing, thinking, oh, this would never happen. Well, what a wild ride life was. Off I go back to the ground. You know, they believe that's it, I'm rotten, I'm bones, and I'm dust. the evolution. And when my subscriber got the urges to do this, and she went over to this guy, it confirmed to him that the agreement was met. And it confirmed to him that his father was in the afterlife. His father was able to see things. And his father had reached out to my subscriber in another realm, and she all along thought she was losing her mind. She still can't believe what happened to this day, but it gives her great reassurance to know that she wasn't hearing voices, and there was possibly an explanation behind it. I welcome all your comments on this. The next scary London experience I'm going to be covering here on this channel today was from one of my subscribers called Chloe, who works in South London at an estate agent, which basically, for those of you who aren't my UK viewers, they sell properties and they help people sell houses, flats, and they rent out flats and advertise stuff for people. So her job was to actually work in the office at the back of the estate agents. The people in her team would take photos. There would be a guy who does the advertisement itself and creates the ad. Yeah, so she introduced her team a little bit, and she'd been working there for 4 years. She was renting a tiny, cramped studio apartment around 20 minutes away on the London Underground. She would commute to work every day on the London Underground, and her rent was extortionate for this tiny space, over $2,000 a month. It was 1,700 or £600. And she was actually, you know, a normal commuter in London. This was a lady who would go about her business, struggling, paying the bills, a bit lost in life, not knowing what the end goal would be, with the costs being so high and not saving any money. She worked very hard. She was an honest worker. She had a good load of qualifications, and she got on with her team at the estate agent. She liked them. While she was taking public transport one evening, she noticed something extremely strange and unsettling. She said she would always take the busy rush hour tube home. It would be around 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And without fault, in the 4 years she had been working at this agency job, she was always fighting for a spot on the tube. It was so busy that she would sometimes have to wait another 10 or 20 minutes for the next train to come in. She got on this particular carriage, and it was an evening of a Friday, and she got on, and there was one person on the whole carriage. It was a Friday evening, and there was one person on the whole carriage. Do you guys know how unusual that is? For London at 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. to have one person on any of the carriages is literally unheard of. But to have that on a Friday night, where everyone goes out and goes to restaurants, goes to clubs, goes socializing, gets ready for the weekend, travels down south, up north, back to their families, students leaving the uni or the accommodations to visit family and friends, it's unheard of. And she knew this instantly. She could feel it. She could sense that something wasn't right. She looked around, and there was one guy. He had a red hoodie with a Boss logo on it. He was sat there. He wasn't reading a magazine or a newspaper, and he didn't have his phone. Another thing she found rather strange. When she stepped onto this carriage, she felt like she had winded up on the wrong carriage. She double-checked on the screen that it was the right carriage, back to where she needed to go, to the underground near her studio apartment. And sure enough, it was. It was a place she needed to go to. She got that train, and she took the 20-minute commute. She said it was the most uncomfortable moment of her life, because this guy didn't blink. He looked directly out of the window opposite, and he didn't say anything to her. He didn't look at her, at least she didn't think so, and he didn't have a phone. It was like the guy was just under a trance or possessed. In London, you can usually label people based on what you think they're doing because of how they're dressed or how they're behaving. You have the shoppers, you have the tourists, you have the workers, you have the locals, you have the railway staff. But this man was so out of place. She said that he looked like he had just come out of his mum's basement playing video games. Like, he turned up in a hoodie, a Hugo Boss or Boss hoodie, and had a pair of jeans on. He had no bag, he had no phone that he got out, and he had no friends and no one with him. Of course, it's not uncommon, but it's just very weird, and it's not necessarily something that is normal in London. She was trying to suss out this guy and figure out who he was and what he was doing. But while doing this, she started to feel extremely uncomfortable. She got a feeling that told her she should not know who this man is or what he is doing. And she ended up just getting to her stop and getting off. He got off at the exact stop that she got off at, and he followed her all the way back to her studio apartment complex. Now, of course, any young lady who has this happen to her is going to start panicking. She's going to get scared and feel like she could be in danger, that this man is possibly stalking. However, for that to happen, she would then need to call help and stop it from happening. But she didn't do that because she thought, I can't prove he's following me. She decided that she would keep going to her apartment, into the building, and sure enough, he was following her. He gave her around about 20 meters of space, but was continuing to follow her closely from behind. While doing this, he continued to have his hood up, his hands in his pockets, no phone, no bag, nothing, no friends. The guy walked all the way up the flight of steps and caught her up. When she got into her apartment, she shut the door, slammed it, and locked the door. She heard his footsteps, and she was certain, with 100% certainty, that he had gone into the apartment next door. That evening, she asked her friends for advice, and she says, I think it's a guy living next to me, my neighbour. And they said, well, you've got to be joking. You're paranoid. It's okay, calm down. Maybe he's visiting someone. What if he was just a friend? He's not stalking you. Stop being silly. They tried to reassure her, and she started to relax and believe them that this guy was just going about his day, and there was nothing that he was doing that was, inherently wrong or criminal. So my subscriber ends up getting pretty much a couple hours sleep. Paranoid, she's barricaded her door of her studio apartment with the furniture, the sofa, the couch in her living room, and she's just panicking. She doesn't know whether to call the cops or do what. She's scared. After a while, she wakes up, she gets a couple hours sleep, and she heads off back again down to the underground. And as she is heading down the steps into the underground, so my American viewers, imagine the subway where you walk underground and you've got all the steps, you've got the fluorescent lights, it's busy, people rushing about with their bags and headphones in, AirPods, phones out. It's the same thing, but just London. And she noticed this guy from a million miles away. He wasn't behind her, following her. He was stood leaning up against a wall, in the exact same hoodie from yesterday evening. She saw him and her stomach dropped. She kept walking, this time fast, and went straight away to one of the transport security officers in the underground. She explained her situation, that she felt like she was being followed and she didn't know what to do. Well, it turns out that the guy couldn't help, because he offered to basically go with her to her carriage, but he couldn't do anything more to trespass this man from the underground, as he had not done anything wrong, and everything she was saying he couldn't believe, because she was stood there saying, he followed me back to my apartment and this happened last night, and the guard was just thinking this lady might be absolutely crazy. and he's probably just an innocent guy. So that doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't help. In the end, she has to take the train, and she can't see where this guy is. She's paranoid. She's looking around, she's walking around, and she is non-stop trying to stay alert and aware and look for this guy. She doesn't see him for a whole week, and the apartment next door to her is to let, meaning it's now being rented out and the old people living there have moved. She was a bit confused. She never knew the neighbours that lived there. She never spoke to anyone. She was excited to see who the new neighbours would be. Weeks had passed and she no longer was so on edge or had heightened awareness because of the encounter with this creepy guy. So it turns out, weirdly enough, the way she got this studio apartment was through the agency where she works. They told her that there was some cheap studio apartments not far from her place of work, her office, and they would give her you know, a reduced rate and also not charge her the fees and things because she worked at the agency. So she agreed to that, and it turned out that the agency also managed the one next to her. They managed pretty much every single unit and flat in that apartment complex, and they were accepting interviews for people to move in, and they were accepting people to do viewings in person, or, you know, different types of calls or webinar calls and tours online and video call. And someone had applied within the first minute of it being advertised, which was rather strange even for South London. 1 minute's very rare, they said. Usually it's within 5 to 10 minutes they'll get 1 or 2 maybe, and that's seen as very abnormal and extremely fast. So anyway, there is a guy that's given the job of doing the interviews and the tours. Like I said, they have someone who makes the ads at the agency, there's someone designs the ad, some photographer that takes the photographs for the agency, and her job is the accounts for the agency and the bookkeeping for the money side of stuff and salaries. She met up with Sam, who was the guy who gave the tour to the person who applied for the viewing of her place next door. And when she met up with him, which was in the work, they met at lunch break inside the back of the agency. He explained the guy as wearing a hoodie with boss written on it, keeping his hood up at all times and his hands in his pockets. No phone, no clothes, no bag. She froze, and she looked him square in the eyes and said, "Sam, if this guy offers you $10,000 a month, don't let him stay there." Thank you to each and every one of you for staying tuned until the end of today's encounters. Now, of course, Sam did not let this man stay at the apartment, and they quickly got a replacement in that she gets on with very well now to this day. So creepy, absolutely terrifying. God knows what that guy was up to, how he even managed to find all that information out. If you're new to my channel, please click the red subscribe button. It'll keep you updated with all my future videos. Consider supporting the channel by sharing the videos and liking, thumbs up for the video. And I enjoy reading all your comments, so leave plenty of those. I hope you're all well, and I hope you're doing good. I love coming out here to the forest. It's the evening time. It's really nice here, you know. I enjoy coming here because there's fresh air. It's away from the hustle and bustle and different people, and in my opinion, it's a great way to relax and reset your mind. You know, I used to do a lot of running to do that. Now I just come to the forest and do walks and things. So yeah, thank you, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.